This is the E-Commerce Braintrust, a podcast about building momentum online for established consumer brands. Join our hosts and their expert guests for high-level conversations about e-commerce strategies, trends, and innovations. Access our Braintrust and boost your brand's e-commerce potential.
Hello and welcome to the E-Commerce Braintrust podcast. I'm Julie Spear, Head of Retail Marketplace Services at Acadia, alongside my co-host Jordan Ripley, Director of Retail Operations. And today we are joined by Scott Lester, who is Senior Manager for Digital and E-Commerce for the company EOS. That's the company behind the evolution of smooth products that we all know and love. So that includes the body lotions, the lip balms, the shaving creams. We had the pleasure of connecting with Scott in person while the three of us were amongst the attendees at eTail East in Boston in August. And while at eTail East, Scott was a speaker that was focused on marketplace optimization and strategy. We're very happy to have you with us, Scott. Welcome to the show. Excited to dig in with you today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm excited about this.
Excellent. Optimization, I think I've talked about this when we chatted in person. This is one of my all-time favorite topics. This will be a fun conversation for me. So thank you for that. One of the themes that we've discussed with brand leaders that we've talked to on the podcast and as we're meeting across the industry, and we also heard it repeated a lot at eTail East, is the idea that there isn't really a traditional career path in e-com. I can vouch for that, as I am one of those non-traditional career paths as well. And as are you. You started in pharmaceutical sales prior to finding yourself in the exciting world of e-com. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey and how you ended up where you are today?
Yeah, 15 years ago, if you would have told me I was going to be in e-commerce, I wouldn't have believed you. I have a degree in Spanish literature.
That's your standard prereq for e-commerce.
Yeah, also, why did my parents say you're not going to get a job in Spanish literature? But
Sure. This is all despite them, is what I'm hearing.
Right after college, I had a part-time job at West Elm, and I got them to put me into the New York Columbus Circle branch just to get here. So after that, I applied to every job I could find on LinkedIn. And I think around that same time, that movie Love and Other Drugs came out. So pharmaceutical sales were on the top of my mind. And I got a job, and 6 months in, I hated it. I am not a cold call salesperson. I didn't like rushing to get doctors to listen to me. So I rinsed and repeated. This time I put a filter in place. I knew from working at West Elm that I really enjoyed textile. So I really narrowed my search into that. And I got lucky. I landed with Ellery Home Style. So they had a window panel that went viral on Walmart.com, of all things. And they wanted to replicate that success across their portfolio. So I got really lucky with that. I got to help a company build from the ground up. And I realized how much I loved that chaos. I loved how different every day was coming into e-commerce and just learning with everyone. Textiles is kind of a dying industry in the States. It's really moving offshore. I worked for a few textiles companies and put a different filter on my job search after that, looking for something that I knew would be long-term. And I enjoy the beauty space. I love product and got really excited when EOS brought me in for an interview. And I saw just how smart everybody was and how happy they seemed. And 3 years in, I can attest to that. This has been a great position.
I love the framing that you put a different filter on your search. Like, is your way of framing your changing paths. I love that way of saying it.
A couple of things I feel like the helpful takeaways there of like, yeah, you might not know exactly the role that you're looking for, but if you're passionate about that particular industry, interested in the product, right, like then you can kind of navigate your way towards the actual position that aligns.
Absolutely. Find your way in and then say yes to everything. You can get there. Just get in the company first.
Yeah. That's actually a great segue into the next thing I wanted to touch on, where the brand you work for now is with EOS is such a distinctive brand. I feel like every one of us has seen this product. It's one that I think has a really consistent brand ethos across digital touchpoints, across in-store. And I think one of the parts, though I'd love to hear your perspective on this, but working in e-com is you get to take all these things that are part of this omni-channel experience and translate them across the various digital marketplaces that now your brand has to operate in. This is something that you've been able to witness firsthand over the many years that you've been there. And I was just wondering if you could kind of pull back the curtain a little bit and talk about your sort of day-to-day and how you bring that brand ethos that is so clear and so distinct to the various channels that you manage.
Yeah. I think the biggest piece for us is we realize that more people start their product discovery search on Amazon than they do any search engine. We knew that that's a valuable consumer touch point and a way to tell our brand story. We actually have this really developed brand guide and point of view. I call it like our EOS grimoire. It has everything that our ethos is about. I think that's the biggest first step is you need a source of truth for your whole marketing team to go back to and make sure that what they're doing aligns with that. But the voices and the messages that you'll see in our in-person activations are going to be exactly what you see in our A+ content, our brand pages, and our display media. I think one of my favorite examples of that, we had a national brand campaign that we were able to turn into retail media network activations. So we saw, we were getting all of these salacious and really funny reviews and comments on our PDPs and social media posts. And after getting permission from those posters, our national team created a campaign called Dirty DMs. And that's where we had this elderly lady read some of those dirty DMs out loud while our mascot Shay pantomimed them in the background. If you haven't seen that, look it up on YouTube, Dirty DMs. But we were able to take those same reviews and we labeled them as obsessed-testimonials. And we galvanized that national campaign with our retail media network activations. We used some of those DMs in a Walmart beauty box insert. We put them in our display ads and in our A+ content. So we took that same voice and put it in a different format that matched up with Amazon and Walmart and Target.
That's good. And like the cross-functional element of leaning into social, leaning into UGC, but then ultimately, like, how do I actually drive results with this on Marketplace?
Exactly.
Right. So one of the things I want to dig into is a little bit more around the talk that you gave at eTail. It's the idea that you look at the marketplace through a growth framework. And that's essentially taking the flywheel and breaking it into 4 stages. You have market anticipation, reviews, as you've already hit on a little bit here, discover and rank, and then platform optimization. Can you talk about the first one? Let's start there with the first one with market anticipation. How does this kind of inform like your overall product development and product launch on marketplaces?
Yeah, I love that question. I think first and foremost, we know our customers. We spend time understanding who they are, what they like, and what they do outside of purchasing EOS products. And they're passionate. They tell us what they like, what they don't like, and what they want to see from us next. So the consumer voice is integral in our innovation. On top of that, we look outside of the industry too. I think that our Flavor Lab line is a great example of that. Flavor Lab is a limited edition lip balm launch that we do each year. Each capsule has a different theme to it. For this year's, we noticed there was this viral sensation of secret menu hacks on social media. People were going in and creating their customized drinks at their favorite retailers. Mm-hmm. We also saw that in Q3 of 2023, 3/4 of Starbucks sales were cold drinks. And we also knew that Gen Z was spending money on little luxuries and shifting into their mocktail era. We saw this as inspiration. We knew that this was a growing trend that our consumer base was participating in. And we knew that it would resonate with our fans. So this year's launch of Flavor Lab Secret Menu allowed our fans to combine like all these pack flavors and create their own secret menu lip flavors. So I think us listening to the consumer and looking at what their interests are outside of EOS is really part of that market anticipation.
The thing that I think we talked a little bit about that aligns with that. I mean, I love how you can see a trend in the market, execute it, bring a product to market all quickly, but it's like there's a balance on how nimbly you can operate as an organization. And then once you start to achieve scale, it's like, well, we have to order from our suppliers a year ago, right? And the ability to capitalize on those market trends becomes more challenging. So I was curious if you could talk a little bit about how do you guys balance that sort of nimble versus scale to bring like something like, is it a lot of quick, agile, cross-functional meetings to get something like this live? I would love some insight there.
It is. So as we're making these capsule collections, we do build off of things that we already know. We know, I'm totally making this up, but we know that like a consumer really prefers a gourmand scent from us. So we're not venturing too far away from who we are when we make these, and we're utilizing our product knowledge to just push it in a slightly different direction. We also have the benefit of, we have a big footprint, but we're a small company. We're still able to be very nimble and react to what we're seeing in the marketplace. That is a big clarifier. You're right. We're a small company. We can be a little bit more nimble.
Yeah. And the importance of like digital as this leader sometimes for product dev, where it's like you can get quick feedback on this versus like a full store buy. Right?
Exactly. Like if we put something online, we can go in and show the customer sentiment behind it. And I think that really gives these retailers, it lets them not feel like it's such a big gamble to put it on their shelves.
Yeah, let's go into that customer sentiment. You talked about this repurposing of reviews into UGC and media buys and that sort of thing. But the other thing that you spoke about during your talk was why these are becoming increasingly important in a sort of AI-driven and omni-channel future. Dirty DMs aside, as funny and cool as the concept was, is like when we think about the application from an AI perspective, an omni-channel perspective, like how do you look at reviews and their importance?
Yeah, with the implementation of those AI bots like Amazon's Rufus or Walmart's Sparky, customer voice has become that much more important. And these bots are helping customers in their decision-making process now. And they're summarizing all of those reviews into one paragraph at the top of the reviews. They're also answering questions. Like if you ask Sparky or Rufus a question, it's funneling through reviews to give you a concise answer based on what your peers are saying. That makes reviews that much more important. But then it's also a good source for you as a brand to look at too. We're utilizing Rufus and Sparky. We're going into those most popular questions and seeing how it's answering those prompts. Like, does this shave oil prevent ingrown hairs? Or does this body lotion moisturize for 24 hours? It helps us see what the consumer is saying. That way we can give them more education on the features and benefits on our PDPs before purchase.
Well, that you're hearing more of, there might be features and benefits of your products that you undervalue compared to the consumer feedback that they offer in their reviews. It's like, oh, I didn't know that this mattered so much for this product. So I think it lends a lot of insight that way.
It's true. I mean, speaking to what Jordan said, like putting a product online, we had a holiday capsule collection of body lotion. The consumers picked up on a scent in that body lotion that we didn't call out in any of our PDPs, but because it launched online first, we were able to get that, change all of our content and change our messaging a little bit to show what was actually resonating with that consumer.
I feel like you're on the edge, that you're nimble not only on product development, but your approach to optimization. I feel like you're on the edge of the approach for many brands where you are taking the customer sentiment, what's relevant to the customers, what they care about, their intent that you're learning from the PDPs, and having that inform your optimizations. This is like so exciting and music to my ears.
Your customer's your brand ambassador. What they're telling their friends is the most important piece of it. That's more important than the display ad that you're putting up. We're listening. We want to make sure that they are getting what they need.
And using the language they're using to talk about your product as well. Thinking about the approach to optimization has changed so much.
Yes.
And it's going to continue to change. It was almost like a very sterile approach of this word has this search volume, like very...
I miss those days.
I kind of like this new world. I like this new world of connecting to the customer and understanding the emotion and the sentiment behind it. Can you talk to me about how these changing consumer behaviors with the generative engine optimization and all of that, how all of that plays together in how you're prioritizing your content optimizations now?
Yeah, honestly, the implementation of Cosmo at Amazon changed search and discovery. We had to reevaluate our efforts and make sure we were putting our efforts in the right place. And part of that, like you saying, meeting your customer where they're at and using their language, 3/4 of purchases on Amazon are mobile. And if you've noticed, like when you're scrolling through PDPs now, they're hiding copy and bullets. You have to click to expand it. And that's just a big aha that copy and bullets aren't for your consumer anymore. They need to be readable, but they should be focused on building for Cosmo's algorithm. They're building your relevancy. They're not informing your consumer anymore. Your traffic drivers are your A+ content, your images, and your reviews. Where before we were trying to do that keyword stuffing in the romantic language and just really calling out features there. And traffic drivers have changed. You know, on Amazon specifically, it's search relevancy, offsite traffic, promotions, and paid media. I could talk about GEO all day long, but
and this is like something we've had episodes in the past where it's like, everyone is talking about this in the industry. Is anybody actually doing this? We had an episode with Russ Derringer from Stratably, and it was like the survey, and this was 300 some odd brands and agencies. And it was like, we're all aware of this. Like, it's something we think we should be doing. The amount of people that have like dedicated headcount or kicked off a project around this, very small, like single digit or, 10,
it was
15%.
single digit percentage for brands. And then I think 20 or just shy of 20% for agencies that have dipped their toe into it, which was like Which none of us have the playbook or answer right now.
Right.
But to try is...
Exactly. That was our tactic too. We worked with an agency to help us with generative engine optimization. And it's a try. Some of them looked promising. It looked like we were going to get 300% traffic increase, and it didn't happen. But on others, it did. So us just dipping our toe in and testing, we got a 30% increase in traffic by running through that exercise. That may not have been the 290% change in our whole assortment that I wanted, but it's still a huge step in the right direction.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like the test and learn here is a critical one. One other thing that I did want to make sure that we touch on is this thing that really became the underpinning of your talk at eTail, which is this idea that digital shelf, both infinite, but also highly concentrated. We've talked about this with Mike Black from Profitero on a recent episode. And something that a lot of their research bears out is like the digital shelf and the endless assortment, it can be a bit of a trap. Like, are you actually appearing where someone could feasibly buy you? You've highlighted this in your presentation of, if you're only thinking in store and I have X amount of slots that I can fill, or I'm only thinking like my shopper marketing and where can I put an end cap on this and stuff. If you take that same mentality to digital, it's kind of an outmoded way of thinking. And that really you should be thinking about this. Where are all the touch points that I can influence across organic and paid, and how do those play together? And then how do I even measure if those are being effective? So not expecting you to solve all of that with this one thing, but I am curious if you could kind of walk through your perspective on this, right? Like, you're someone who oversees both of those sides of the business, the advertising and the organic. You have to make a case around these investments up within the organization, I imagine. So how do you merchandise that? How do you think about it? How do you talk about it internally?
Yeah, it's that balance of organic and paid. That's the constant question. And there are so many bells and whistles. Every retail media network has everything that you could touch. First step for us is to take a step back and say, what is the goal of this campaign and how does it tie back to the goals that I have for the year? And we even do that talking about how much things have changed. Sponsored search used to just be lower funnel, driving conversion, get a good ROAS. But even that's changed for us. We're using our sponsored search bids to increase visibility in those search terms that we want to increase our relevancy in, to kick off that flywheel of us moving up organic search and organic relevancy. So even those lower funnel tactics have a bigger goal attached to them. And then those bigger tactics like CTV or DSP or your display ads, we can't pinpoint what stage of the shopping journey we're actually going to be visible to the customer in when they see that. I don't believe in the upper funnel, middle funnel, lower funnel strategy anymore. I think that's changed drastically. We're trying to tell that all forms of that discovery, the hype, the purchase in the community, we're trying to do all of that with these visual aids. They're meant to increase our new to brand customers, but we want it to be exciting too. We want people to talk about it and share it with their friends. And we want to showcase the community that we've built that love our product. So yeah, we want them to buy it too, but we also just want to create this spark when they see our ads. And speaking to measurement, I think you hit the nail on the head with that. I truly believe that AMC is underutilized for people that are putting their ads and ad dollars on Amazon. It's such a great tool. We can see what channel is the best touch point for new to brand customers. We can see the time of day to run our media based on who our consumers are. And we can see the most effective media mix to get someone from not knowing our product to converting. I mean, it just goes on and on. There are so many use cases for something like AMC. And it's so worth talking to someone at Amazon Ads and getting those reports and making sure that your dollars are actually working towards those goals that you've set.
Yeah, I feel like AMC has moved from a nice to have to a table stakes for effective use of your dollars, for sure.
Yeah, especially as you grow and are getting these higher budgets, it's important to make sure that it's working for you and that you're not just dumping money into ROAS stuffing.
Oh, that's a whole other topic. We could have you on a round table for that one. You're speaking our language. As we wrap up our conversation today, could you share if there's anything that you're really excited about industry-wise or specifically for EOS as the brand? What's kind of piquing your excitement these days?
Yeah, I think I'll use the definition of excitement as an elevated state of emotion because I am enthusiastic and terribly anxious about the role AI is going to play in our industry. I love how it's helping me personally with like data analysis and checking for holes in my concepts. And I can't wait to see how that changes and how AI gets smarter to help us with that. But I'm also really anxious about things like generative imagery and how widely unregulated it is. It's getting harder to differentiate between what's AI and what's an actual photo. And that's a little scary to me. So I am both excited and alarmed by AI.
And the possibilities of that next 30
Exactly.
DMs campaign. You're like, what's going to go on?
I like the very specific framing of the word excited. Elevated
Excited with sweat dripping down.
I can picture the generated image right there. Well, Scott, I appreciate you coming on to talk with us today. This was a fun conversation and excited to have you back sometime.
Absolutely. It's been very fun for me too. I appreciate you inviting me on.